Hello and welcome to this episode of A Focus On with myself, Fifi Peters, where we continue our focus on Africa's fintech landscape, which has seen significant growth. Since 2021, the number of active African fintech startups has grown by over 17%, and there has also been significant growth in the volume and the value of transactions processed through integrated payment systems. For more on Africa's fintech landscape and the opportunities for further value unlock, I am joined by Aida Diarra, the Senior Vice President for Visa Sub-Saharan Africa. So Visa has done a lot of work, and in fact you do a lot of work on a frequent basis in the fintech landscape. So perhaps let's just start off there with your assessment of how things are currently going in terms of what the current fintech landscape is looking like right now, and some of the initiatives that you also have on the go to integrate fintechs into your system.
Yes, the fintech ecosystem and environment has been vibrant in Africa in ways that is just impressive. As I look at the overall ecosystem, we were looking at some of the numbers and realizing that the number of fintechs now throughout the continent is about 12,000. Wow. Across the continent. And what I love is that they are present in many, many countries across the board. It started mainly with South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria being the hub, and now across all markets, Ghana, even in French-speaking West Africa, we see a number of these players play an increasingly important role in the payment landscape. What we see they do is they bring innovation to payments, and more importantly, they provide access and provide the services all the way to the last mile of the merchants or consumers. So what we've seen, recently is lots of focus, for example, on cross-border, making payment from one country to another from a P2P perspective, but also from a P2M perspective as well, and removing some of the frictions that you can have across markets. We see a lot of focus as well on providing support to small businesses that need support to digitize their operations, digitize their financial reporting, make sure that we could provide transparency so that banks can extend loans and credit in ways that are second to none. So the way we look at the fintech is that they play a key role in digitizing cash in collaboration with the existing ecosystem, the financial institutions that are also playing their fair share.
Cash continues to remain king on the continent. Can you just maybe talk to us on the closing of the gap? And in your view, whether it's happening at pace, and if it's not, what do you think some of the stumbling blocks are?
Very good question. The great news is that cash is reducing.
Okay.
So if we looked at the numbers back in 2019, it was estimated to have 86% of payments happening in Africa done in cash. Fast forward to 2022, and we're still looking at the numbers for 2023. We're looking at 72% of payments. So we're reducing that gap, across the board. And what we want to make sure of as player of the ecosystem is that we help them be part of the broader network that a player like Visa has, to make sure that we help them be the catalyst and accelerate the work that they are currently doing. We do that through several, programs. I'm happy to talk to you about a few of them if this is of interest. We had the Visa Accelerator Programme not too long ago, and what we do is that we look at fintechs that have promising, solutions to the ecosystem. There's about 40 of them that we train to just, help them understand the payment landscape, help them understand, the requirements to play in that environment. And so we give them access to the sets of solutions and skills, tools that we have. And more importantly, we put them in front of venture capitalists that would be also interested in investing in them. And that's part of, creating and strengthening that ecosystem of fintechs. We also have the Visa Everywhere initiative, which I love. 15,000 startups have participated since we launched the program in about 2015, and they raised together $48 billion worth of investment. So the momentum is here, and the vibrancy is here. What the fintechs are facing, because that was part of your question in terms of challenge to move even faster, is number one, access to capital. Yeah, they still are facing a gap between the innovation of the solutions they are creating and having access to capital where they need to demonstrate sustainability of their business and ideas. So that's one. The other piece that is also very important, and we talked a lot about this in a recent meeting in Casablanca, has to do with the regulatory environment that is, strengthening. And for them, it's critical to understand, all the requirements around security, about KYC, about data privacy, and sometimes, connecting the dots between their solutions and the way the regulator wants to make sure that there is, safeguards around some of these critical topics is where they need a lot of support and help as well. And there's the reality of our continent is that as much as there's been progress in terms of providing access to internet and technology, the access is not even across the different countries and the different market, and even within a given country, urban versus rural areas experience a gap. So as fintechs designs their solutions, they're faced with some discrepancy in terms of having access. But the entire ecosystem understands the urgency of addressing these preoccupations. And governments are, creating sandboxes, for example, to understand better, what the fintechs are doing. Now, some of the governments are even embedding fintechs in digitizing their own services. So we're heading in the right direction, and I'm positive that we will continue to see positive traction.
So are these factors that have also not only prevented the acceleration and the scaling of fintechs across the continent, but globally as well? And you alluded to a certain form of sort of participation, or governments coming to the party, indicating that perhaps this could potentially be less of a barrier in terms of scaling fintechs globally? Or are there other factors that are impeding global expansion?
There's the factors that I talked about are, a challenge across the board, especially when you want to look at, creating a unique market within Africa where you have different jurisdictions and regulations. So you can be successful in a given country as a fintech, but once you try to expand, to another country within the continent, you're faced with, different jurisdictions. So there is a need there to create a more uniformed regulatory environment to be the catalyst for that accelerated traction. And you have a player like PAPS, who's trying to build that, pan-regional, ecosystem to foster cross-border trade. We are at the baby steps of that initiative, but it's definitely heading into the right direction. So you have your local regulations that are, an opportunity for, fintechs to understand better how to fit and be in sync with, the local regulations. But you have a broader issue, which is how do we create that, pan-regional, set play to make it easy for fintechs to operate and to continue to grow.
But as you reflect on the several thousands of fintechs that Visa has worked with over the years, what have been some of the major successes in your view? But more importantly, what have they shown you about where the trends are going in this space?
If you take, first of all, the mobile network operators, and you see the phenomenal work that they've done to create access to millions of individuals to be able to, make payments digitally, it is already a case study that is recognized across the globe, not only in Africa, but this is like a critical milestone. There is definitely an opportunity to continue to build on that, to deepen, the services that we make available to these consumers. But that for me is like a major milestone. What we see now, like I said, is a lot of fintechs are creating, the last mile to the merchants, making sure that, they deploy like low-cost acceptance devices, to make sure that they can accept digital payments. You have many players across the continent who do that. You have the Yokos here in South Africa, the Money Points, in Nigeria, and the list is long. What they do in addition to that, which I find is awesome as well, is that they open new rails like e-commerce, And we saw what happened during COVID when we saw that the companies that were digitizing their offerings and accepting digital payments were the most resilient one, and the trend is continuing, and these fintechs continue to play a critical role in not only enabling merchants to digitize their service online, but by opening gateways that allows them to receive payments, which is a different way of selling. You don't sell online the same way that you sell at point of sale, and they're the ones holding the hands, providing the tools to not only, do marketing, record your, sales, and make sure that, they open up to the rest of the world.
In your view, what would it take to accelerate the pace of progress that you are seeing?
It's really about creating the, connection and making sure that the regulators understand what the fintechs are doing, and that the dialogue in terms of, what is the best way to create innovation, enable innovation, and at the same time protect the ecosystem. As we're facing some of the trends nowadays with AI becoming and allowing us to do so many things, with some of the challenges from a security standpoint, not only domestically but globally. There's got to be a way to make sure that we find the right balance between innovation and capitalize on all the vibrancy of the fintech, and making sure that there is a protection of the broader macroeconomic ecosystem.
Well, we look forward to having further conversations with you in the space as you continue to partner with these vibrant businesses in the ecosystem as Visa yourself. But Aida, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much for joining us in studio today. This episode of Focus On with Aida Diarra, Senior Vice President for Visa Sub-Saharan Africa. That is how we wrap up the show. Thanks once again for watching as always, and we'll do it again soon. Goodbye.